member orientation before this meeting. So I don't know if
Uh,
that's still running on.
no, it was canceled whenever everybody was glued to their TVs exactly at 5 p.m.
Right. Okay. Right. So I won't rehash what is already news. Um, okay. I was, I'll wait to see if we get some more folks. I was expecting Anthony, maybe Rita.
Yeah, I think
Give it a few minutes.
it's worth giving it a couple minutes.
Yeah.
I'll check the spreadsheet to see who's signed in compared to who. There's two people who've signed in or who've signed up who have not signed in.
Okay.
So, we got probably at least a couple others on their way.
Okay. We'll give him a few minutes. I get the news of the day is pretty riveting.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Anthony. Oh, there he is. Hi, Anthony. Well, you can unmute Anthony if you would, please, and Marco, since they're members of the board, in
Okay.
case they have something to share.
Yeah,
I
and
think
we
Anthony,
haven't started yet, so
right. Um, I think Anthony you might have something for new business, I think later on. And I'm glad if we have a few people here at least. Ah, okay. I like to see everybody. Welcome. So what is it? 6:35.
it's 6:33 right now.
Tell you what, we'll give it till 6:35, and what we have is what we have, and we'll go from there.
Sounds great.
Okay. And I'll let everybody watch the news coverage between now and then.
So just right before 6:35, I'll go ahead and I know there's only a couple people here who are not super familiar, maybe, so maybe are not
Why don't
uh,
you? Yeah.
accustomed to the CB8 Zoom
Yeah.
virtual meetings, but just as a refresher for anybody if they haven't been here in a while, you'll notice that currently everybody's muted, and you'll remain muted throughout the duration of the meeting, except for our co-chairs, Ed, and if Rebecca joins, and any presenters that Ed calls on. As we move through the agenda, you can participate by going to the React icon on your device and pressing the raise hand button. It's not the wave or the thumbs up, those will disappear. Only press the raise hand button once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in from the phone, which nobody is right now, it's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Once Ed calls on you, you should be on the lookout for a prompt on your device asking you to confirm unmuting. If you're having problems, the chat is available for technical support. It's not to ask questions of Ed or any of the other board members. They'll never see those chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you may need to go to the participant section where you'll find the raise hand feature there. And even in a small room like this, we encourage you not to wave your hand or raise your actual physical hand to get our attention. If you're having problems, chat me. I'm here for support. And with that, it's 6:35, so we can get going.
Hey, Will, thanks. You really have a future in TV after this, really, honestly. You're really good at that.
I'm gonna go the Jin
Um,
Saki route.
yeah. Anyway, welcome everyone to the May 2024 Housing Committee meeting for CB8. My name is Ed Hartzog. Excuse me, I'm the co-chair of the committee. Welcome. If you have not been here before, welcome back. Welcome some old friends, new faces, a couple of board members along as well. Welcome everyone. It's a little, I will confess, it's not as let me get the light so I don't look so well. Anyway, so you can see me at least. Yeah, exactly. Um, we were planning to do something, to be honest with you, we haven't met in a while. We were on a quarterly schedule for the housing committee meeting. Um, Housing is, to be obvious for 2024, right? It's the big issue. A lot of things are going on. We've been planning for a couple of months to kind of catch up on what happened in Albany. And obviously we have a lot going on here in the city, you know. Anyway, so the idea for this particular meeting was to just talk about this 485X, what happened in Albany, some of the changes to the housing law. Um, I was hoping to have an old friend, Alicia Boyd, who had come before in November. Unfortunately, she was not going to be able to make it this evening, had another engagement with another community board, go figure. And our old friend Sarah Hale Stern from Senator Liz Kruger's office, also unable to be with us this evening. I know sent along some interesting information, which reminds me, I will put a couple of the links that Sarah sent to me in the chat. Will, what do I do? I put it in the chat and then you post it, or everyone can see it, or
Yeah, that's
how
great.
does that
Send it
work?
to me and I'll put it out. Yeah.
Okay. I'll put the links in there. In the meantime, I know some of our board members had some new business. Anthony is here. Great to see him as co-chair of our zoning and development committee. They've been doing a lot of stuff on housing with the city of Yes. Um, Frankly, it's 6:38. I know a lot of things are happening in the news. And I would like to delve into a lot of issues about Albany, but I'll just be very frank and honest that I am not the expert that Sarah Hill Stern is, and by no means Alicia Boyd. So before we go on, and before I start kind of looking down and kind of giving this very boring recitation of what happened, which everybody can read for themselves. I want to throw it out there first and cut to the chase and see if there's anything that happened in Albany that people are particularly interested in, and perhaps I can answer that, short of having the experts here. And other than that, maybe foster a discussion about what's going on in Albany. And if not, it could be a short housing committee meeting. We can kick it over to new business and, set up for next month what we'll talk about there. So without me going on any longer, I will throw it over to, and if I pronounce it incorrectly, Yanley, is that correct first time?
Yes, it's Yaneli.
Yanelli, sorry,
Thank
my
you, Ed,
apologies.
for the introduction and for everyone that's here. Unfortunately, we'll stay within the scope, and I'll just say, Ed, I know we haven't met, but some people can provide some subject expertise on certain things. But I will stay within my scope of what I know, what I can say, and on verifiable information, as it pertains to Albany and as it pertains to us and as it pertains to housing.
Cool.
Uh, there have been a lot of changes, but then again, laws can exist on the books, but are they being enforced? And what's important, what's on the agenda? It's I will say, it's unfortunate that Liz Kruger, our state senator, couldn't be here. Right now, I can say, and also too, let me just, just to put in some context, I was born in the late 80s. So just a different era. I do read, so I read through the policies, and I've also been to Albany earlier this year. So I can say that, I it's different, you know, when you go actually to Albany. So there's a few things, you know, my focus is to stay on, you know, you know, what we can do, what's important, who we are, and you know, what's past and not, you know, and stay sort of
Move.
Can I
diplomatic.
stop for a second?
Sure, of
I'm
course.
sorry. Are you with, so you're not with, say,
So
you're
I will say that I'm
who are
not
you with?
making a statement for I'm not on the board of the committee. I am a
Member of the public.
no. I am a property owner here in Yorkville. And I'm participating on the community board, uh, because that's what we do.
Right.
You know,
Okay, so that's all. I
appropriately.
just wasn't sure. Okay,
Yes,
you're a
yes.
member of
No,
the
no,
public. Okay, no, no.
feel free to, you know, I've been to a few other meetings, not the housing, you know, but,
What do you
housing
want?
is very,
What do you want?
I'm sorry?
Marco, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
Go ahead.
think it's almost easier, you know, when, you know, as you encourage dialogue, you know, when people are unmuted so that, you know, because I know you guys don't know me and, you know, I may be speaking, you know, a bit
Well, is there a
quickly.
particular issue you're interested in
Well,
or you'd like
there's
to
a few
discuss?
things. There's a few things as it pertains to housing, new and old and Albany, that have passed and, you know, an issue that is important and also, that affects all of us. And I, you know, I speak also on behalf of, uh, you know, what things that are pertinent. We have an aging elderly community here, 21% or more. And, you know, and as somebody, you know, when you're invested in owning property, you know, you care, but also, this is just good governance. Uh, One of the things that is, when it comes to housing, is the lack of, you know, and again, I'm somebody, you know, I came from working in compliance. I've been around the country to do different things, you know, like I said, I've been up to Albany personally, you know, at the appropriate venue by invitation. So, there is a lack, I mean, to get around who runs everything in New York City with a lack of permits and, inspectors, there's real, as it comes to housing. And, you know, you know, and I can say, you know, from my viewpoint, you know, what I'm seeing, and unsafe building, lack of permits, you know, hydrants being put offline, taking up spots. Also too, when you don't have the proper, I'm, you know, I'm all for construction and building.
Mhm.
You know, it's Manhattan. It doesn't have to be, you know, I'm not here to whine, but I'm just here, you know, as safety issues uh, and I do take the time to, you know, to find out whom it is. So it's New York City Department of Building downtown, you know, who inspects and does permits, but there's a lack of proper permits. And you know, that cat and mouse game of construction, is old business and new business because it also, you know, when things aren't done correctly, and you know, I can say, you know, because I've seen it, you know, we can prevent things, you know, and that's just also gas leaks, gas explosions. Speaking of our district, I didn't forget, you know, Roosevelt Island, that explosion, also the earthquake recently. And some of the things too is just that, like, we did have an earthquake. Some people did, like I can say myself, have property damage, that was caused, by that. And, you know, we haven't discussed two things like FEMA, but also if there is any housing available, veterans and, people who are displaced should get priority.
Sure.
You know, because if we're building, you know, we have veterans on the street, we have a veteran.
Right, sure.
And also I come, not only do I work now at a hospital, you know, I've had different, you know, I'm out of, you know, but you know, we just celebrated Memorial Day, but also just every day, you know,
Right.
we shouldn't have them we should be able to accommodate them. And all these other projects, like that's what takes priority. And I spoke to Albany,
Okay.
you know,
so
and
is
there were a
there
few things that were that were of interest.
So is there a
And
particular issue in
yes,
general? There's
yes,
something that
yes,
they're addressing, or do you have a
uh,
specific one? You
so a
seem to have
specific
a
one,
lot, but can you?
the specific one is, you know, people don't know, and not many people will take the time, like I will, to call and try and figure out or have some prior experience. There's a lack of oversight on housing and new building and
Is that
permits.
from the DOB or is that from state
That
agency?
is like that is a city thing, a state thing, but it's also a community thing. It's just an every day, you know, it's oversight. And we also don't want to destabilize. There's a lot of structural damage that has already been done to New York, to our community. And you know, what we can prevent, we prevent. And you know, there has been um, you know, veterans get priority. We have a veterans office. Um, there is housing too that has been set aside in the past, giving preference. And I can speak for like the Mitchell-Lama project here in Yorkville. And you know, I I I'm speaking, you know, on behalf of uh, veterans, you know, because you know, from the comforts that I have, you know, but you know, they need help and they should be prioritized in any kind of project. But then also too, secondary thing is just the safety issue. And, you know, I do inspections, you know, and I've gone out and I go out, and and I've spoken to the city, and also, you know, it's just like, you don't have to play this cat and mouse game with, and hydrants and things and all of that. Like, it's just, and it affects all of us. We prevent things, that we can
You
prevent.
talking about parking? Is that it?
Well,
The
parking, you
hydrant?
know, is secondary to preventing, you know, a fire, uh, a natural gas disaster. That's what happens when you don't follow rules, when you are building new housing. And I can say, like, you know, after speaking to, you know, Rebecca Seabright's office and her staff, and like I said, you know, um, uh, they're trying, and you know, I wrote handwritten letters that I'll be delivering to them. You know, and also too, to just say a moment of thanks, you know, that you guys are even having this, that you didn't just cancel it because someone didn't show up, and that you're listening to me. And you know, I'm listening to you, just trying to be a good Samaritan, you know.
Sure.
And you know, we can, you know, divert money into other areas. And also, you know, I've been around to other parts of the district that I haven't been to, like Roseville Island, but that's another matter. But you know, we use these kind of examples, and also, like I spoke, and of course, thank police, thanked our fire department, personally. You know, we have a good community here, but just like every other community, you know, the lack of oversight with the inspections of the buildings. It just cannot just be like, oh, it's not my responsibility. It's this person's job. It's just, you know, everyone's passing the buck. And meanwhile, because like I said, I've been around the country at prior times, and you know, and also I've seen too, you know, uh, speaking also too from an engineering perspective, you know, uh, on destabilizing, like, let's just prevent things, you know, it's not just for me, you know, this building might be non-combustible that I'm in, you know, and fireproof, but others aren't. And, you know, other people, you know, uh, may not feel comfortable having the voice, especially right now, but, you know, Mayor Adams assured that yesterday in his press conference, And also I'm quite sure of, how to use my ability to speak, um, uh, for good and to help. And it's not, uh, the, everyone's doing whatever they want, but now they're doing it on my turf, on my block. And, I don't care what's going on in another district right now, because that's out of my jurisdiction. But I do care, for my community, and, just being a good Samaritan,
Sure.
having to help
Yeah.
elderly people, the sidewise and all of that, it's hard getting around. Like, I'm seeing a very different York Avenue
Yeah.
than I
Well,
used to.
that sounds like something for transportation as well,
I will be
in terms of
taking a
getting around
transportation,
like
but
that.
but it's also, it's housing, because this is housing. And what are we doing with current housing? Well, first of all, let's keep the housing we have, right? We want to keep
Right.
folks that
So we're just
in,
trying to focus though, I hate to cut you off like that.
okay, no, it's fine.
But,
No,
it seems you don't really have a particular issue that you're looking at with respect to
I-
Albany. You have a lot of issues. I get that, I think
Albany.
I kind of would like to move, although I don't
Oh,
see anybody looking to speak to any particular issue. So I don't know if there's
oh,
any
so,
interest in
okay,
that.
so one of the things that Albany, uh, passed, and also, and that's just recent too, is just this um prioritizing. I mean, if you want me to reference it, or did you want to speak on 485X? Um,
Well,
because I looked at
my
the
initial.
agenda, some of the meetings are different, and they actually have like a more detailed
Right. Well,
agenda
we were
on
hoping, to be honest with you, we have a lot of things going on, a lot of committee meetings, and a lot of things happening
so it's
this week.
transportation's responsibility on the
No,
permits.
no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we haven't met in a while, and there's a lot of very large issues that are happening with respect to housing, as there always have been these last few years. And we have the city of Yes, and the full board is going to be addressing that issue next month.
What is
We
the city of
had a
Yes?
present the
Uh,
city. Well, if you give me a second, the city of Yes is a major rezoning proposal by the mayor. It's been around. The city has been talking about it for, I think, well over a year now, in all kinds of iterations. The city of Yes on housing, on economic development. I know I'm forgetting one. I'm having my Rick Perry moment, but it's not relevant right now. But the point is that we're going to be addressing the housing aspect of that next month. And we had a presentation for city planning, and it was our last full board meeting. And our other committee, the Zoning and Development Committee, has been working with us. Anthony Cohn, the co-chair of that committee, is with us. They've been dealing with a lot of those issues. And so what I was saying is, we've been sort of planning this meeting for about 2 months to find out what Albany's been doing. And, not to give anybody a hard time, but the budget was a little later than we expected and anticipated, I think, for a lot of people. So that meeting sort of got pushed down the road, and it sort of got pushed right into the city of Yes. And I didn't want to cancel tonight. And unfortunately, with so many things going on, our usual guest couldn't make it. And like you said, I appreciate it. We didn't want to cancel the meeting, although I think it's hurt our attendance. We usually have a much more robust group. Not, we're happy everybody's here.
well,
Anyway,
that's been happening.
yeah. And
City of
so
Yes, the city of Yes, it has to do with affordable housing.
yes. And so what I was going to say is, if you can, I'm going to let Anthony jump in here. I know you've sort of kind of gone for a while, Emily, and maybe he has something, because I don't think, like I said, I don't want to just kind of look down. Sarah has sent me a lot of things. I'm going to put them in the chat, but I just, I find it myself as a participant, I don't think it's effective, looking at the chair or the host, looking down and kind of reading. And my apologies for not being more conversant. But anyway, so in the hopes of being a little more fluid and turning it over, Anthony, I'm going to recognize you and let you go on here. And I'm going to
Thanks.
send the other things to Will.
I think Ed, and the thanks. And I think one of the biggest things that came out of the budget this year really is lifting the FAR cap. And the reason is not is not what, if you read there are restrictions on this and restrictions, and I can go through them. It's not that. It's that coupled with the city's ability to create new higher density residential districts, the R11, the R11A, and the R12, will allow for much bigger buildings. And all of those restrictions, the creation of those new zones would require a ULURP approval. Okay. I don't think in our district we've seen a ULURP proposal rejected in quite some time, no matter how
Right.
unneighborhood friendly it might be, the blood center. And so I think that the danger is that even though they told us at the meeting last month that they would only be doing this in parts of Manhattan like Midtown, where there was already a lot of higher density commercial buildings, it just seems to me to be an invitation to get bigger buildings on the unprotected avenues. And the unprotected avenues include parts of Park Avenue and include parts of Madison Avenue that are not landmark districts. And obviously includes 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and York, which are in fact, prime candidates for losing their little buildings and getting great big buildings because they are not protected. And a rezoning that would allow a rezoning to R12 would allow a building of an FAR of 18. Now 20, it said in the thing 20 to 30% would have to be affordable. But that's still an awful lot more residential than we have anywhere else in our district. And I think that it's symptomatic of the notion, and we talked about this on the phone the other day. It's symptomatic of the I believe false notion that if you build enough new housing, it will just automatically become prices will automatically go down, and any kind of housing you build will automatically lower the cost of housing elsewhere, which is, it's like trickle down economics. It doesn't exist. And I think the fact that these projects are really targeted for, are described as aiding in the creation of rental housing. The fact of the matter is that when interest rates go down again, people will stop building rental housing and they'll start building condos again. That's the cycle the city has been in for decades, that developers plan buildings in new areas. When the 6th Avenue, this is now going back 30 years or more. When 6th Avenue, 30 years, when 6th Avenue was rezoned, Avenue of the Americas was rezoned between 22nd Street and 42nd Street, 23rd Street and 42nd Street. It was rezoned and upzoned, and all of those mixed-use buildings, mostly apartments, were built all in the 20s, and on Avenue of the Americas. They were originally designed as rentals. The ones that got online earliest were built as rentals because interest rates were way high. If those were to be built today, they would be condos. Or they would have been condos, let's say 2 years ago. And so that there's a cycle of condo versus rental building, but this is intended to, where would it say? Yes, 25% it says, and with a weighted average of 80% of the AMI, which is still a lot of money. And so I think that in terms of being a dangerous proposal, that's a dangerous proposal when coupled with a lot of the other the other bits and pieces, both of this and of the city of Yes. So
Okay.
I think I think that for me, that was like the biggest bad thing to come out of the state budget, was that concession, which was traded, it seems, for some
Protection.
some tenant protections,
Yeah, I
but
think I saw
of a
something.
really kind of very mild nature.
Thanks, Anthony. I really appreciate that. And Marco, I see you have your hand up. So nice to see you. I think you're unmuted.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Uh, I think with all respect that you deserve, but I think you are running late with your committee, because right now the city of Yes, I'm going to address the city of Yes. I'm not going to go anything on the state, because I think that is the most eminent problem that we are facing. And Anthony's right. This is a dangerous proposal. I repeat, this is a quotation from Anthony, and I agree with that part. Why? First of all, this is a very poor public policy. Secondly, it's not a solid planning. Let me explain you why. They target and they start doing with the transfer of the air rights. I call the dancing of the air rights, because they transfer obviously in the direction that they want. So now, if the state they are planning to go to R12 or R11, the only thing they doing is they send to the developers, hey, don't buy air rights. We're gonna give you free air rights, free more floor area. That's what it is, because either you have as a right of development R12 or R11, or you have to buy the air rights. So if you increase the cap to 11 or 12 or whatever they want, the only thing they doing is, please, developers, don't buy air rights, because we're gonna give you some benefits, some more floor area to build. And since we have no high limits of the buildings on third, second, first at York Avenue, so you can keep accumulating as much as you want. That is the first point. The second point I find it is, I asked the question to the director of housing, what is the deficit of housing in the city of New York? They are reluctant to answer this question, because my understanding, I'm going to start with the Mayor Adams, that he said one day he put somebody to yell in front of him when he come out, 500,000 units we're going to build. But now he's not preaching anymore that part. He finally, somebody did, I think an environmental study, and they found out they're gonna build 108,000 for something of housing in 15 years, while the Mayor de Blasio built in 10 years 140,000 units. That's what he claimed. So the point is very simple. This is supply and demand. So the more deficit that we have, the higher are the prices of the housing, period. And that is why many families, they spend more than 30, 40, more than 50% of their income. And that is the crisis that we are living for those people. Those people, they have to make a choice, either to pay the rent and don't eat, or to eat and be evicted and become homeless. So that is a lack of poor public policy. We need something sound that we can help everybody, we have to incentivize the developers. Be careful. I'm not against the developers. We need them. But the only thing is, let me put metaphorical what I said. If we have a pie, don't let the developer eat the whole pie. Give a couple of slices to the community. How? If they transfer the air rights, for instance, to the corner, the house, the building owner that sold the air rights, they pick it up the millions of dollars and put in the pockets. We had to tell them, yes, you can transfer, but you had to improve the quality of housing. Put some money in your own property. If we put money in their own property, you increase the standard of housing in the city of New York. If we don't do that? That's what they're doing right now. Is we are supporting substandard of housing. This is tremendously wrong. Now, if we go into the unprotected area that do not have high limits, that is even worse. So you have two chances over there, either in the way that I already described, that means the dancing of the air rights, or in a lot, no the building, the Anthony's building, but in general, you see the walk-ups in the mid blocks. And the walk-ups is filling up completely of rent control and rent stabilizing. And this is the Board of Presidents said that those people, they live in some kind of subsidized housing. Is not the best option, but at least there are something that we need to protect. And then what they are planning is they want to demolish four walk-ups, 25 feet each wide. So you have 100 by 100. So they're planning to build, said, okay, build me 11 affordable housing and build 58 market rate. So right now in the same lot, they easily can have 80 affordable units. So what is going on over there? We're supposed to increase the housing stock. No, what we're doing is decrease, and we decrease for a specific target population, which is basically a spatial segregation by income. Those people that live over there, they must leave our community because they cannot afford these new rental market units. That is one. The other problem is I did a study, and the study proves that all the developers, they build between 54% to 25%. So they never build, if a developer has to build 100 dwelling units, the only thing they build is 54 units or 25. In some cases, even lower. So, and there is a specific development. Zero housing in that development. That is 79 on First Avenue. They demolished 79 affordable units. They built 0 units, no luxury, no middle income, no anything at all. What they build? They build a medical facility. What is the medical facility built? For doctor's office of MSK. So we become, this developer is, if we do a mistakes, the developer are 10 or 20 steps ahead of us, all of us. So why? Because they have excellent consultants in everything. And also they have a good experience in development. So you cannot beat them. So one of the issues that I consider that the city of yes, they should do that is we have to eliminate what they are planning to do with us. What we need to do is we have to establish the building limits, the building height limits in the avenues. And that we can regulate the density. Yes, they calculate the maximum density, but they do not calculate the lower density. We had to push the increase the density. Then the developer, they're gonna build that. As a good example, we saw a developer that came to us. Remember, the developer 86 on York Avenue. Remember, he demolished 32 and built 33. Remember that?
Oh,
And
yeah,
it
yeah,
happened.
yeah.
Yeah, and it happened to be, I was in a position of that, and it happened to be is the best development that happened in our community, because they build affordable housing, and they build middle income housing, and they build luxury housing. Good, good for everybody. A good policy has to be inclusive. It cannot be just only for one specific group of people. And I think that's what basically we had to discuss in this committee. We need to discuss exactly what is going on, and we need something practical. Why they're coming the community board 11? It's just only R7. The Grand Concourse are 8. Grand Concourse should be, they have the service of all major subway lines, and they should be R10 over there. So if you do that, you can create affordable housing. You can create everything within the transit system, which is I think I applaud that, to build everything in that direction. I don't want to continue anymore, but I will discuss deeper.
No, it's always informative, Marco, hearing what you have to say. And, it's interesting. The last evening or the evening before, I can't remember which, shameless plug for New York One, but I was watching inside City Hall, and they had Antonio Reynoso on. People who may or may not know is the borough president of Brooklyn. He and I believe our borough president, Mark Levine, are very big on building more stock, building more. And the borough president was talking about density, to your point, and talking about needing more density. To Anthony's point and to your point, one of the things he was saying about the city of Yes and this upzoning and the lifting things is that it would, everybody has to the first speaker's point, everybody has to do their fair share. And something that caught my ear was the point, I think, as he said, was, so smaller density needs, it was proportional density. And as I heard that, it sounded like, higher density gets higher density, so we're going to get more. And I'm not clear about what that, exactly. And, when do we need to be talking about what you're saying, Marco? And that was also something I wanted to talk about just in general. Again, I'm sorry, it's a little free flowing here. It's like talk radio almost. I'm sorry that you can try to be a little more structured. Normally we are, if this is your first time with us. Anyway, but I know we're bleeding into the city of Yes with housing, which is what's happened in every single forum I've been in the last 3 months. It always ends up there, no matter where we begin. So I would like to, even though it sort of was planned for new business, but it wasn't much by the way of on the agenda item. So I'm kind of, without any objection from folks, kind of just move us into that. Because what I would like, and I see Boaz has joined us. So Boaz, you haven't spoken yet. So Yanli, I'm going to let him speak before you, as he hasn't said anything in a second. And what I would like to do and focus is on, because I see it's already 7:15, and it's great to talk and kind of vent a little bit, but I would like to have a little more structure so we can, get out of here within a reasonable time. But is talk about, as we come into next month and we're talking about the city of Yes, Marco, I think you agree with you 1,000%, is, what are some of the smarter things that we could be talking about, looking at, right? Again, I'm with you, this, Marco, I've always used the analogy, we have cap pistols, I mean, not promoting violence, but, it's like, we got cap pistols, against, people, they're just in a better, stronger position. Anyway, so Boaz, what I'm saying is, if you have something to add, we would love to hear what you have to say. I know you do, you always do, but if you could direct your comments to the city of Yes and kind of not necessarily go on, but maybe to an issue or two that you think as a committee or we should be looking at as a public, as a group next month when I think we're going to vote on it. The board members, Anthony, Marco, right? We're voting. I think we're probably going to vote on it next month, right? So
yes.
So we can have a little more of an intelligent discussion. So without the black drape and David Susskind and the single malt and some palm malls, with all that not being here, Boaz, I'm going to turn it over to you to throw out a couple of issues from the public for the city of Yes. Will, if you could unmute Boaz, and welcome back as always.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so Ed, it's always pleasure to join one of your committees. You are one of the good people because you treat the public. You give space to the public to talk, and you give us respect. That's all what we want. I will make it very short. I don't have anything to add. I think every person has his position. I don't think that I will be able to change any perspective. I'm a big supporter of more housing in the Upper East Side, more housing in the Bronx, more housing in everywhere. I really hope that the city of Yes will bring the additional housing to all those places. More housing. Put aside the support, the affordable. We just need to increase the supply. Now, my question to the people that are against addition of the additional housing. I'm looking at Anthony Cohen, for example. I know that you are against it. It's okay. This is your position. What is your message to the nurses, to the teachers, to the social workers, to those who cannot afford to live in Upper East Side today? They are market rate. They cannot. They are not part of the affordable house.
Okay.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
10 seconds, and then I'll give you. You guys are talking 80%
problem.
of the time.
All right, this is great.
The public talk only 1%. Just give me the 1%. That's it, and then back to the mute. What's your? I have so basically two-part question. What is your message to the nurses, to the social workers, to the teachers? And I will bring some of them to the public meeting whenever you guys vote, because I think it's very important for you guys to see them in live and give your feedback to them. That's one. The second thing, my ask to you until your meeting is go to the street, talk, not with the doctors, with the nurses, talk with the teachers, talk with Will Brightbill friends, talk with the people that work for the city, ask them their perspective. That's what I want. I don't think that you are a bad guy. I think that you are a great guy. I want to see more Anthony Cohen. I want to see more people involved in the local politics. But the only thing I want you to just listen to us, listen to our struggle, because eventually we are here to serve you, your family. That's all. Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you very much.
All right, Boaz, thank you. Anthony, I'll let you respond, and then Yenli, okay.
This is my message. And really my message is predicated on not actually believing in the basic premise of the city of Yes for housing. The basic premise of the city of Yes for housing, and I'm not sure if you were on the call at that when I said it, but I'll say it again happily. The premise is that if we build more housing, housing prices will go down. Somehow, even though we have built housing that more or less keeps pace with the increase in population, housing prices haven't gone down. And they're not going to go down as a consequence of having more housing. We will just build more expensive housing. The simple economics of construction in the city of New York and everywhere, but the city of New York especially, is that it costs, I'll use a term of art here, a shitload of money to build a building. It costs a fortune. And that it is, and it's divided in different ways. One way to look at it is that land acquisition costs are enormous. They're outrageously expensive. Land in Manhattan is unbelievably expensive, and it is probably more expensive on the Upper East Side than it is anywhere else, especially if it's an area zoned for residential, especially now since commercial projects are dead. But even if you go So one thing is the cost of construction. The other thing is if you've watched a building go up in Manhattan and you've watched a building go up in Nassau County or Westchester even, there's no place to put anything. Your lot is your lot. You're going to block one lane of traffic if you're lucky, and you'll cheat and push your little barrier out a little further. So there's no place to store materials. There's no place to line up the concrete trucks. There's no place to put the steel except onto the building. So the problem is that not only are you spending a lot of money that you shouldn't have to spend for the land, you're spending a lot of money for the logistics of construction, to say nothing of all of the labor that goes into building a building. A tall building is a lot more expensive to build than a lower building. It just is. And I think so. My message to those people is you should be voting for candidates who will support housing built with city funds, state funds, and federal funds. Anybody who believes, as our mayor says, that you just build more, it'll get cheaper, is fooling themselves. And we've been mistreated and effectively lied to by our elected officials for generations. This city is a city built on real estate development since 1800, if not before. When the commissioners drew that map of Manhattan in, what was it, 1808 or 1810?
Like that, DeWitt Clinton, right?
Yeah, that said it all. And I think that it's fine, okay, fine, build a lot of more buildings, rents will never come down. Rents come down when people leave town in droves, and not for long. My son signed a lease on the Upper East Side, just one anecdote and then I'll be done. Signed a lease on the Upper East Side in 2021. Rents were rock bottom. It was fabulous. He got a very good deal. It was still expensive, but he got a very good deal on a really nice apartment on 79th in York. Well, it's a funny thing. His 2-year lease was up. He signed a new lease, and all of a sudden, it was no longer such a big bargain. He didn't want to move, so fine. So he and his wife have crammed their all their stuff into the apartment. Rents didn't go down in that building. Rents jumped back up, and they're not going to go down again. It's the sad fact of life that living in New York City is expensive, and unless there is some kind of real effort on the part of the city, state, and federal government to build housing or to institute some kind of rent control, which then subsidizes people's housing, it's never going to happen.
No, it is an informative. No, I know we're not really getting anything to pass or to resolve and that kind of thing, but I do find these discussions informative, at least for me. I don't know about the rest of you. Well, I know. Well, Will looks riveted. Anyway, it's only an hour. No, there is a point to it all, though, and it is nice to hear from the public. We do have the City of Yes coming up, and we can wrap up shortly because I'm not sure what we're going to really.
I'd just like to say one thing really quick.
Sure.
And there aren't that many of us here, but we have our land use committee meeting of the whole is on the 18th. And normally it would be on the 19th, but because of Juneteenth, it's on the 18th.
which is Tuesday.
There are two items on the agenda, I noticed.
Yes.
One of which may or may not be
74-7-11.
controversial. But City of Yes is on it. I don't think we'll get through it all on the 19th. So you will also have a chance to complain before we're finally done at the Zoning and Development Committee meeting on the 25th. 25th. Did I
Okay,
do that right?
don't know. Could be.
It's the day before, right, Will?
Yeah, that
Could
sounds
be.
right. Give me
Yeah,
10
so it's the
seconds.
25th.
Tuesday. Yeah,
And then, Tuesday, the
Yeah.
25th, and then the full board meeting that probably will wrap up City of Yes,
Okay. Well,
if past experience is anything.
that's good to know. And Yanli, when I haven't forgot, you're not going to don't worry, your hand is up. We will not close out without letting you speak again. But I see Elaine Walsh's hand is up. I'll get to Elaine in a second. Thank you, Anthony. Before I forget, unrelated, but I'll get going and I will forget. Those of you pro, con, in between, ambivalent, I just throw it out there, not shilling either way. There is a rally tomorrow, 11 o'clock, downtown at City Hall Park, related to the City of Yes. For those of you who have nothing to do, it's going to be a nice day if you want to go downtown. You have a lot of New Yorkers, or understand a lot of people are going to show up. So I just throw it out there to you. In the meantime, I will note that before we do adjourn for the evening, which isn't right now, but before we do, I would like to get, because Elaine, you're up in a second, is that nice to see you. Is that I would like to kind of get some consensus among the small group here. If we should have a meeting next month or the month after about things. And I know I've said this before, but we will get someone in here. We did with Alicia last year to talk about the financing of real estate and having a little more of an educational meeting about just understanding the finances of what's really going on, because I think that would inform our discussion a lot as well. All right, enough of me going on. Elaine Walsh, great to see you back. Great to have you. You look like you're in someplace sunny and warm and not quite as many tall buildings as around here. So welcome. And the floor is yours. Will, you could unmute Elaine.
Okay.
What you have to say.
Thank you, Ed. Well, it's warm, but I'm in an apartment and it's sunny because I face south, and because I'm across the street from a landmark, I don't get blocked in with a loss of sun.
And it's already 7:30, so the sun is still up.
And I really am interested in what's happening on the verdict tonight, which you all heard, and I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment that Anthony is absolutely right, and Marco. It is very expensive to build here. And the only way we had some affordability was when the government came into play. The feds are not contributing to housing stock now. They're not providing any money. The other issue is land is expensive. But let me tell you, over time, when there was development going on and there was to be, I don't like the word affordable, workers' housing.
Mhm.
Who's defining affordable, of course.
Right. Well, that's what workers' housing is, affordable, but it's a word that gets caught in people's throats. But when that was going on in our community, deals were made so that the affordable units, workers' units that should have been within the buildings that were built or off-site in our neighborhood, deals were made and they were put in the other boroughs. That's why we lost the opportunity. Now, allegedly, there's enforcement. No. Across the street from me, they should have had a workers' housing, and there's none there. Okay. The way to cut costs, and Anthony talked to this, is for the government to identify their properties and start building on the property. Out in Southampton, Stony Brook is working with the state in Dasney, and they're going to put on that campus housing that will be for workers and students. That's a state university. We need to look at the space that the universities or other institutions have, but also the properties that are owned. Now, in our community, there's not that much there because it's been built on. But we lost opportunities even on 80th and East End Avenue. That was government property. There's a high rise of luxury there, okay? Now, as to the cost of renting, I'm a social worker. I was referred to earlier by a speaker about we want to live here. The reality is, with the salaries that were identified, unless there is a strong government subsidy available, not going to be able to afford it. I grew up in the neighborhood, in a tenement. That building's still there because their rights were sold to somebody else and they now can't do anything with it. Nobody's going to build on that space. But, you know, you have to look at the full picture. Building more housing doesn't help. And I think Marco's absolutely right. Our third, second, first, and York Avenues are going to be inundated with tall buildings. But if we want affordable construction, you stay below 12 stories. Okay? And so my advice is advocate for what you know, but first understand the dynamics of what goes into workers' housing and wanting to live in a community. The other boroughs have lots more space than we do, and you're going to have a problem because a lot of it is private homes. If you think they want City of Yes, forget it. And in our community, we are the densest community, not only in our city, but in the country. So where are we going to put them? And the mayor wants to do a 6th floor on the RAB level. Well, you can't put a 6th floor because if you add a floor, you have to put an elevator. There's no space in the buildings. So please, people who want to engage in this discussion need to understand the history, understand the facts, and learn what's doable and just not say, we want more affordability. We're social workers or nurses, blah, blah, blah. Hey, I'm there, but that's not how you do it. Thank you very much. And I'm going to leave you all because I got to listen to my.
You got to get the commentary, or you can't
Oh
get
my
enough?
God, I'm in such a
Get
happy
enough. You can't.
We're
I
gonna-
thought you were giddy about just being here at the housing committee meeting. But listen,
And I was in such conflict over it. But I
I-
got to say goodnight now, and I got to go back and listen more because Cohen comes on at 8 o'clock.
all right, I'm going to let you go, Elaine.
Oh.
Great to see you. Look forward to seeing you next month.
Absolutely.
Yenli, and sorry to disappear. I was listening. I just had to step. I'm here. If you don't see me, you just see the bridge. Yenli, I'm going to go back to you. You had your hand up. You've been very patient, letting everyone jump in front. But continuing in the vein that we had about an issue for next month, or just something that you think we
Yeah,
should be
so
focusing on.
this was all very informative, getting different perspectives. And if I could just,
Sure, and I'm here.
and
I'm
if I could just add to, like, to address Bose, I'm not sure
OS, yes, and I'm gonna.
who you are, but I
here.
also am a hospital employee who worked all through COVID. And I also live on the Upper East Side, and I can, as far as like, it was great. It was very informative. Marco, Anthony, everyone. It's always good to have different discussions and not, we're here to discuss housing. And, I'm a constituent. I live here. That's why I'm here. The City of Yes, also too, it's helpful, like, since this is a community board meeting, some of the other ones, they come with an agenda and they attach the policies beforehand so people can read through it and be prepared. If there is an agenda and they can sort of stick to that and move forward, because I know Ed said he wanted some structure. That gives it a bit more structure on what will be discussed, but also just open dialogue. I may live on the Upper East Side, but let me take a moment out of personal privilege to say that I grew up in Queens. Mario Cuomo, um, uh, I grew up in Corona, but went to school in Bayside. And I want to take a moment out of personal privilege to say that we've been hearing and talking about building housing. And does it get built? Like all these perspectives were helpful. Bose, I'll just, because I have a very blunt form, it sounds like you it's not unsolicited advice, and you're talking to the workforce, you're talking to a permanent resident, and you're talking to, you wanted the audience of a healthcare worker, and it is hard for us to work right now, just in general, or around here. Because now we're dealing with something else. So proposals need to be sound, and this like nonsense of like, it's this and that, rallies. If not, like, because we might just have to Mario Cuomo up the situation over here. And I've spoken to his son too when he was a governor, because I'm a Queens girl, so we have been able to build effectively, plan effectively, and also too, I'm absolutely against the city of Yes. It's nonsense. I had a chance to look at it, and also no one discussed the federal 8 voucher, which was also something like. It all needs to be laid out. And Ed, I just have a suggestion too. Next time let's meet more often. But like lay out beforehand on the agenda the items, so that people can be briefed and like caught up, because things are changing in Albany, and like this, and then also that way we can move along more, because I follow rules, but I also, so that's just my a suggestion. But this was all very informative from everyone's perspective, and I was able to and yeah, the transfer of air rights and all of this, but it's also, I'll just point out, very convenient that congestion pricing is going to affect next month, and now everyone wants to build. So let's just set the context and on these unprotected, because I'm on the right now it seems unprotected, but like again, what real estate, and they don't have the best consulting all the time. They may think a lawyer's truth is not truth, but consistency or consistent expediency, just because they're buying it and paying for it. And but exactly, it has to have an elevator, all of this. You know what? It's not making me working easier, but thankfully I also get to work from home sometimes. But because Bose is just like, I don't even know who you are, but it looks like fancy new construction where you're at. So it looks like you're speaking for the I'll make an inference that since you're for the city of Yes, and also too it discounts.
Just to remind everybody, they should be speaking directly to the chair. They should not be addressing anybody else in the room.
I didn't know that.
To be talking about individuals in the meeting who are not the chair.
Right.
Okay. All right.
I don't want to cut you. I don't want to cut you off, but look.
I listened to everybody else, and I didn't know also to this end. So. And there's not very many people left to speak. But as far as things to bring up for next time, is also some structure to attach what it is that you want us to know, ahead of time. And also too, so that I don't have to do this next time, so I'd be better prepared, because old business, new business, business is business. So I can't, and so, also too, it's rude. You're talking to to constituents and people that work and pay taxes, and I don't know what else here. It's just like we gotta wrap it up. okay, then meet more often, and then, you know, like
Well,
because
if I could just
I'm a
jump,
little, like, I will
I
say,
hate to cut you off, but if I could just jump in, because and Marco's been waiting patiently, and we're kind of off the topic of what we were talking about. But to address the topics that you brought up, it's great to have you here. We're very thankful and very happy and overwhelmed. Um, I've been chair now for about 10 years. And so for those who have been with us for long periods of time, they do know that we are very structured. We do have people here and we're very straightforward. So when you come back, this is an aberration, I would say. So your point is well taken. And that's why I'm sort of jumping in here, is because we do need some structure. And we do, I would say, probably have to hop off before 8, because I know people do want to go, and we have some serious breaking news going on in the world that I think people want to know more about, and will have longer implications. And believe me, we will be back to discuss about this. And to your point about having more frequent meetings, interesting you say that. Just as a quick aside, for those of you who haven't been around for a while, we did set up a regular monthly meeting for this committee for a couple of years, but we found that we ran out of topics. So we've recently moved to a quarterly. And so we're still in the process of kind of finding that right spot of either monthly or quarterly or haphazardly. So we appreciate your input and glad you're here. Look forward to you coming back. Make sure we have your email address. You'll be on the list and you'll know when we have our next meeting. Marco, I'm going to kick it over to you and let you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think one of the most important part that we had to mention right here is I founded an study that the Community Board 3 in Manhattan did a study, and they found out that the Community Board 3 is very dense community we respect with 20 cities around the world. And that's what they claim, 20 cities. And as a matter of fact, they said they have 98,000 people per square mile. Now, I went and I checked the records of the Department of City Planning. City Planning said the Upper East Side have 111,000 people in 1 square mile. So we are more dense in the city and the nation, and probably around the world. So the issue right here is we need to create something that is keep up with this consistency, and we have to develop all other communities that they don't give the right share at this time. I'm just mentioned Community Board 11. Community Board 11, which is the northern part in our section, they have R7. Why they had to do R7 when they have the same avenues as we are? We have the same transit system that we have. Probably what is missing just only the Q line, but the Q line is gonna build right away. It's exactly. Tell me, is anybody have a common sense that they put it R7 in the East Harlem? Doesn't have no sense. That is a very poor policy. That is wrong. So even though the city of Yale, they said let's go develop in the mass transit, is right there. Grand Concourse is the same. So my point is, first, the city of Yes, I criticize, I oppose that, but I propose something that is doable in our community. What is doable in our community is establish the high limits, which is the position of the community board. And secondly, is to control the demolition of affordable housing. In my study, I found that for one affordable housing that we build, we demolish 9. So no matter how many new housing we build, we never catch up with the deficit. And that is the point right here. And that is what I'm asking the city of Yes, the director, to tell us what is the deficit on the city completely. Then we can discuss. So this is one part. The main issue what I find right here is even that the city of Yes will be approved is more likely. That's my impression. And I wish that not, but it will be approved. The damage in our community will be very deeper. So people that middle income housing, such as the doctors, nurse, they had to leave right here because it will become a very exclusive community, just only for the wealthy, not for the middle class, which is that's the dimension, not for the low income housing. On the contrary, they try to create a spatial segregation by income. They want to be people that don't have enough income, it has to leave. I think it's wrong. So we had to move in that direction, and we had to have a conversation in that part. Sometimes people, they come in and say, oh, we have a vacancy rate almost 150, I hear somebody said. This is right. We need vacancy rate. No city in the world doesn't have, or they neglect to have vacancy rate because they need that. How the people, if they want to change from one job to another job, it has to have a place to move in the right place. And that's, I think, poor Anthony has to pay the children rent because they went up. I'm sorry, Anthony, to hear that. But in any event, Anthony, means you never said that you're against housing. You never said that you're gonna go against housing. On the contrary, you always. I had to mention that you always in favor of to provide housing for all. That is the most important, not for one group, for all. Create opportunities for all, and that's basically. I'm gonna end it right there. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Marco. Listen, I don't think we really have much more to add here. It's been a little sort of more of a venting, well, a little, like I said, talk radio. But it's good to have folks here. Yanli, I see your hand up. Do you have an issue to add to our list? I don't know if we have much of a list, although Marco, I thought that was a good topic you brought up with respect to the demolition and the fact that we never seem to be getting caught up on any of that.
Well, it's okay, Ed. You know, radio is back. I've got my I was just listening to it. Things you kind of hold on to when you're born in the 80s, right?
Right.
Still antenna still works. I know that the Rangers are playing soon, so that's game 5 is a concern of mine. But no, this was all informative too. And also when we say being inclusive for all, you know, some people do have, you know, speaking from as a hospital worker and also because we chair disabilities as part of one of you know, not everybody, you know, I use the word affordable because that's the word that's in the policy. And then if not these days, because again, you know, people will say clarify or I don't understand when you use other words. So even though it might not be in the American Heritage Dictionary, you know, you have to stay consistent with that. So that's what I mean by affordable. But again, also too, it's like I've been around, you know, you know, proud to have been born in the late 80s. And you know, we've been hearing this and you know, and I'm glad to be back in New York. And you see, I'm in my 30s, but I've still retained to be where I am. So we can get things done and have effective and good policy. And that's why I was able to grow up and stay in Corona, Queens, and go on to Benjamin and Cardozo and SUNY Buffalo because of good, sound planning from Mario Cuomo, who is the only person. I'll just take a moment, you know, to just say that when you bring up his name in New York, I've noticed, even though I'm young, like people are like, wow, you know, like they smile. So you know, this is an important issue. And yeah, and it's also, it's a convenient time again with congestion pricing, all these other things. And, you know, trying to find loopholes. And also too, we learned from examples. And I don't, you know, no one has to be on here. If they have other things to do and if they want to get to other things, that's fine. They can hop off. You know, I care about my community. I care about my state. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm taking time to, you know, you know, this was all very informative. That's, you know, what community boards are. And, you know, also do, we have to be inclusive. And when we say inclusive too, it's like, hey, not everyone, you know, I can read, I can follow instructions. But you know, as far as the agenda was, it wasn't provided. So then too, it's just like, you know, give people a bit of a courtesy and the grace if, you know, because I've seen to at other meetings, people are just ghosting. You know, that's a new term, you know, ghosting. But you know, uh, they don't show up at meetings. Okay, you know, I'll remember that too in the state senate races, and I'll remember who shows up and who
I don't know,
doesn't show up and
well,
what they say.
I wouldn't say we got ghosted tonight more than ghosting is not. I don't think.
Well, ghosting is a term that we are using here on the Upper East Side. But yeah, they didn't show up. So
Well,
okay,
I
all right.
wouldn't-
So
I
if they
wouldn't-
didn't
well,
come,
listen,
this was still helpful. However, too, it's like, you know, I also do like structure, and like I said, I've gone to the other ones, and they have boom, boom, boom. This is what we're gonna address. One A, B, C, and D. You're prepared. You have it. You review it beforehand, and you know, you follow in line. But then too, there's like, yeah, no, we need to meet more often. And yeah, I am out there speaking and like looking at stuff. You know, not just from you know, not just out the window, but you know, I'm down there and I'm also speaking for people who can't speak, and also speaking up for the community. And also too, it's just like we, you know, and
So I'm gonna. I'm sorry.
I'll, you know, and it's like if it goes till 8, then it goes till 8. You know, you don't meet that often, so it took a while to even get to this meeting. From my perspective, like you got to look at, you know, the people who live here. It's like if you're not meeting that often, and then you want to wrap it up early, then like, you know,
Well, I don't know if we're
it's
getting.
almost over. Yeah, but I'm also trying to, you know, I don't know when you will meet next. So I do kind of have to, you know, you guys talk and have each other's, you know, you talk
Well, we're
offline.
not gonna. We're
And yeah, so for the next, you know, agenda, yeah, the city of this, I'm pro business and, but yes, you're right. There has to be, this is a dense area, construction materials, all of that. Um, and it and you know, how that affects everything, because you have to look at the whole, you know, we can be in these silos, but the housing issue, and rezoning and redistricting, and you know, it's like, you know, I would appreciate too, also too, because you know, I do share what is shared at community meetings and other, you know, with other folks who need the information, and who can't, you know, and break it down sort of in layman terms. So you know, having all of this, especially for housing and stuff, because you know, I'm a maps person. um you know, having the maps, you know, what's
Right.
what,
So
because I am in, I guess you could say, you know, and I didn't realize too, I'm in an unprotected area, like adjacent to.
I hate to cut
yeah,
you off. I hate to cut you off. I'm gonna have to jump in here. Look, look. I said 8 o'clock, but there's no set time for the end here, and I've asked if you could just give me a point for our meeting next time, and I'm happy to let you talk, and we're happy to have you come to our meetings, but I don't think we're really, you know, to your point, I don't think we have much structure here, and we seem to be going on. And I'm gonna go to somebody else who's raised their hand. Anthony, do you have something?
I have a motion to adjourn.
Anybody want to second that? Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Okay, great to have you all.
Thank you, Ed.
Keep on the calendar, and we will see you all the next time we meet, either next month or the month after. Thanks, everybody.